All right, gang, welcome back to some Wing Chun here. Let's go over today. This is going to be the techniques, the drill days, if you will, Wednesdays. And the beauty about what we're going to be doing is if you have questions from the first video that I did talking about the form, this is where you're going to get answers. So the best way to describe this is like with the business school that I'm involved in. In other business schools, you go to school, you get your certificate or your degree, and then you go find a job and you apply the knowledge you learned. In the business school I'm involved in, we teach you the knowledge you need while you're working so that you apply it in the same motion. So you take your two parallels and you tighten them up as you go. Same thing with this. So you learned a first section of the first form with a movement. You learned the movements of them. I didn't teach you what the movements were. I didn't talk to you about the concepts behind the movements, the ideologies behind the movements, the methods of the movements. I didn't teach you any of that kind of stuff. You know, I gave you a minute and 45 seconds worth of me doing a sequence, and I said, get the sequence down. I didn't talk about the whys or the hows or the correct positions or the foundations behind it. We're going to be doing that as we go. So as I give you movements and concepts, you're going to be putting those together for yourself as we go. Here's what you're going to be covering as we go on. These are the actions. You have to think of everything in Wing Chun as their actions. It's a punch is an action, a Taan Sao is an action, Wu Sao is an action, a Pak Sao is an action, Bong Sao is an action. It's the action that you're doing. So you have a Da, which is punch. You know, your Da, punch. Taan Sao. Everything that has an S-A-O or an S-A-U at the end of it, ours is S-A-U, Sao, means hand. Hand, that's it. If you see like a bow, you see Yun Bo. Bo means foot. So Yun Sao, circling hand. Yun Bo, circling foot. Tan Sao is the wedge. We'll talk about these movements. Bong Sao is the wing. Yun Sao, the circle. Gan Sao is a splitting arm. Fak Sao is, that's the kill shot. That's a kill shot, and we'll talk about that. Man Sao Wu Sao is going to be your asking hand and your answering hand. We'll talk asking hand, answering hand. That's Man Sao Wu Sao. You have your Pak Sao. Pak Sao is a palm. It's a parry. Jum Sao. It's a sinking motion. Fuk Sao. That's your Swiss Army knife. I talked about that in the last video. All of these come out of Fuk Sao. Jut Sao is a jerking motion. Lap Sao is a pulling motion. Bil Sao is a recovering hand. And Gum Sao is a pressing hand. So take a second and take a look at these and write them down. You can see makes a little bit more clarity with the Man Sao Wu Sao. So pause this if you have to. Write these down in your notebook. Okay. All of these actions, again, what these are these are going to be your actions. So a punch is an action, a wedge is an action, a wing is an action, a circle is an action, splitting. All of these are actions for what we're going to be doing. And what we're going to be focusing on today are the three you pretty much saw in that first section of the first form, which is a punch, a Tan Sao, a wedge, and a circling hand, Yun Sao. I'm going to talk about those. The Gan Sao was in there. We could touch upon that. In the pressuring aspect, things that I'm going to be showing you when we look at next Monday coming on the form. I have to talk to you about the very first movement, how it's down and forward and then it's up and forward, and how the human body, it can't handle two motions at the same time. And that's what you're learning in the very first movement of the form. You're learning to define your center fighting line and the boundaries of your body with anatomical correction. And then you're learning that two motions, two motions, human body can't handle it. So there's a lot you're learning, but today we're going to be covering the punch, we're going to be covering a Tan Sao, and we're going to be covering a Yun Sao. And again, these are things that you have to do your homework on. You're going to see a static punch today, a static Tan Sao, static Yun Sao, and you're going to repeat those motions, because soon they're going to be dynamic. They're going to be flowing. And you're going to wind up seeing things. Oh my gosh, I'm putting those things together. So that's the beauty of this. Remember, you have got to focus on the foundation. You have got to ensure that you dedicate yourself to learning the foundation and respecting the building of that foundation, because in the end, all of this is going to come together in a way that is just, you'll see the beauty of this, I hope. You're going to be like, oh my God, I love how this is all coming together. So that's the goal of this. And we're going to continue today with Da, the punch, Tan Sao, the wedge, and Yun Sao, the circle. All right, now you guys got to keep in mind that this is a sequence only. We're not breaking down the finer points of things right now. You're going to see me do 3 punches, 3 Tan Saos, and 3 Yun Saos, only from the left arm and from a front and a side position. So just get the sequence down. And I'm telling you that this is something you need to do 1,000 times a day. Just 1,000 times a day. I'm going to open this up with the punch Tan Yun Sao. As in reference, that's what we're going to be covering for this. You're going to notice, you know, I keep this on center. The goal is to keep your wrist on center. Not your fingers, not your fist, not your palm, your wrist on center as best you can. And whenever I wind up doing a punch, I slowly feed the energy from my elbow forward. I'm not projecting my hand forward. I'm projecting my elbow forward. And then I'm pulling my elbow back slowly while I try to keep that wrist on center line. That's what I care the most about, is keeping that wrist on center line. I feed the energy forward from the elbow. Then I draw the elbow back. In this instance, you will see me touch my hand to my chest, my wusao to my chest as I go. Because in this, I want to get that full scope of training with all the elbow energy as possible. So I just project that out. And you'll see I don't extend my arm out all the way. And I'll play with my shoulder here too. Watch the distance of my shoulder on here. And watch how far I extend this one. All right, this one I go all the way out. Look where my shoulder is. See, I want to get the most of how my body feels in reaction to everything. There is no right or wrong. And you guys have to really get over that stuff. Well, Sifu says this, Sifu says this. Well, he's not the one who's going to be doing your fighting for you. I relax. I try to turn my shoulders off. I'm bunching up. You have to keep in mind, too, I'm a heavier guy. I'm 5'7", 225. I lift weights. I'm thick. I love my carbohydrates. I am a tense guy, and I love to explore how my body goes. I love that muscle strength aspect feeling on things. So I incorporate that in my fighting my fighting ability. Tan Sao is the same thing. I'm going to feed it. Now, the difference is when I do this is I'm putting my intent down my middle finger. So what I mean by that is I'll open Tan Sao, and I store the energy in my hips, my dantian, and then I feed it up through my spine, out my shoulders, out my elbow, and then goes out my middle finger. So my middle finger is where the intent is feeding out like a hose. But what's pushing the pump out is my hips and my elbow. And again, this is just 3 times, but this is what you should be doing. You should be slowly, all right, I'm going to open up my Tan Sao and feed the elbow out. Feed the elbow out. Nothing is pulling your elbow forward. It's pushing it from the rest of you. And then you're pulling your elbow back. Now you'll see the difference here too. Now watch. Look at the relationship between my elbow, wrist, and torso. As I draw back, you know, that space has to change, meaning that the elbow only starts to pull back a bit, and then the wrist has to start pulling back too. Anatomically, it's impossible not to start changing the angle between your wrist and your elbow. All right, and we're going to do the Yun Sao now. And I'm feeding it out. Tan Sao. I'm going to start curling that index finger, or the pinky finger all the way back. Try to do a tight circle as much as possible, all while keeping my elbow pointed down. So you see I start with a pinky finger, wrap. I continue the energy with a grab, and then I put that elbow energy back in, and I pull the elbow back. Again, coming out, watch the pinky finger, boom, pink, turn. There you go. Crank it up, and then pulls it back. I really put all that intent in the finished motion of it, too. I feed out that Tan, gets to where I feel that my body wants to say, okay, that's good. Grab and chamber. Remember, it's like you're chambering around. I'm going to feed it out. I'm going to start with the pinky finger. Curls, pinky finger leads that dance. And then when you come around in that crescent action, it's still leading it too. Pulls back. Keep in mind, go through these again. You can turn off the sound so you can actually see the position where it is in my body. Watch my shoulder move. Watch how far it extends. Watch how far it doesn't extend. Watch the relationship between my elbow, my wrist, and my torso. All right, so just keep in mind, you're looking at the elbow position. You're looking at the position of the wrist, elbow, and torso, all as they're going in synergistic affect. We're going to go back to the classroom for a couple more minutes, and we're going to look at some concepts. But keep in mind, this is stuff that has to be over and over and over looked at and explored. You can't get in a 4-minute video or a 20-minute video or anything. This is the centerline punch, and everything that it's exploring is going to take a very, very lengthy time, completely dependent upon how much effort and focus you're willing to put into it, amount of time in your passion to discover what it means. So just look at the sequence. Again, right now this is a sequence. We're going to be coming back to it. I'm going to be coming back to it over and over and over again about what this stuff means, what it evolves into, and how to improve your Wing Chun. All right, so let's go back to the classroom, and then I'll see you guys out in the field on the next video. All right, so one of the brilliances about learning your weapons is the entirety of the weapons. A hammer, that's what you're looking at. And it's just one of any concept I can give you. Hammers, I mean, we all know what this is for. This is an object that some manufacturer created, right? And it's God knows how many centuries old. And the modern day hammer was built for a certain point of balance, a certain width in the handle, and you hold your handle at a base, and the head of the hammer was meant to be an impact object to secure nails into a board, right? And you have the opposite end of the handle with a longer leverage point to be able to uproot nails that are put in. But when you look at this thing dynamically, you have to look at, you can pound in nails with this point of the head here. Can you do it with this part of the head here on a flat part? Can you take it and pound nails in like this? When you hold the hammer, do you have to hold it with one hand? Can you hold it with two hands? Can you choke it up as high as possible? When you are pulling that nail out, where's your handle position? What else can you do with this hammer aside from nail in nails? Do you not see an impact weapon? Can you hit somebody with this? Can you hit somebody with this? Can you hit somebody with this? You really have to look at the dynamics of what anything is you're learning with the punch and how the rest of your body is and the weapons that come out of it, that you're not solely dedicated to just one thing. So if you look at a Taan Sao, you're not going to look at the fact of, well, this is just a wedge coming out. No, what else can Taan Sao be? What are the infinite possibilities of what that particular action translates into how you apply it? So keep in mind, one of the concepts is, just like a hammer, just like a screwdriver, just like anything else, you're not limited to the one specific use that thing was created for. As long as you're creative and as long as you can actually get your mind out there and see other things, that's where the art form of this comes from. So it's your job to be expressive in it. That's why Wing Chun, there's no rules, there's concepts, there's principles. And it allows you for a lot of self-exploration during this time. So keep in mind, you're training your hammer, but what else can be done with it? And it's just a beautiful, beautiful art for you to explore with. All right, let's look at something in the concept of what you should be focusing on when you are doing these self-perfection drills, these trainings. Again, with no opponent involved, with no person feeding you energy, with no fellow student, This is that you're there to perfect your weapons. That's it. You're the weapon, your whole body's the weapon, and then remember, whatever comes out of your fist, whatever comes out of your elbow, whatever comes out of your knee, whatever comes out of your foot, that's the weapon, and you're looking to perfect that during this time. Okay, so this is pure perfection. You are just perfecting your weapon. And again, you look at it, you're at the range, you're slow controlled trigger pull. You're trying to place those rounds perfectly down range. You are looking to be as proficient as possible with your firearm, i.e. you and your weapons. Just a few things to consider right now in this time where you're training your centerline punch, your Taan Sao, your Yun Sao. You got the same structure as in everything. The same structure. You have to remember, triangles are everywhere. All right, and I'll do this as a very quick makeshift, stick figure, right? So there's your head, your feet, it's your triangle, right? So if your waist is here, remember, you're looking to build this base as a triangle. And that means that your upper part is a triangle, okay? But also everywhere else from a 3D point of view coming at it, so you got the top and the bottom, the triangle, if you will. But also, even on the little things like your punch, when you're going to look at your elbow position, your shoulder height, if you're training, on your 5 points of your center line, you're going to descend down with your bicep, tricep, part of your arm, and then your elbow, and then you're going to have a little bit of ascension there too, because you're not going to punch completely straight out. You're going to have a little bit of dip for relaxation purposes, things you'll get to know. If your elbow is ergonomically pointed down, that means, look, you just formed a triangle there as well too. And even in a three-dimensional point of view, based on where your hands intersect, that's a triangle as well too. So that means you're half of a triangle. So not only do you have the plane of a triangle going from here, but also you have a plane of a triangle going from here as well too. So triangles are everywhere when you're training. So keep that in mind. The elbow focus is something that you're going to wind up looking at. Remember, the structure is going to be the same on everything as well. I'll back up for a moment. Your punch, Taan sao, jump sao, pak sao, bong sao, and we'll get into this. All of that is going to be the same. So again, punch, Taan, bong. Your structure is going to be the same on everything in a perfection aspect. You're going to be looking to perfect this as time goes on. That's your sole purpose for self-training without a partner. Elbow focus. Where's your elbow at? Is it as focused down as close as possible? Can you get it in? Relax your shoulders, turning off your hand. Oh my God, my shoulder's tight. Oh, I have to adjust my hips. This is your time, and I cannot say this enough, to focus on your body, okay? And then you want to unite the body. You really have to look at things like, all right, what is the relation? If I'm so hell-bent on focusing on my elbow energy, how does it affect my shoulders, my hips, my feet, my ankles, my spine, my knees, my head? Your entire body needs to be in the representation of the relationship between your elbow and the rest of you. Your elbow energy, your elbow focus is so important. It's so important. It is the most important joint that you really want to focus on and then connect the rest of your body to throughout your training. But these things will come in time. So for right now, keep in mind the structure is the same, but everything you do. Okay, you're focusing on perfecting that structure. Your elbow is going to be of focus, and then through this, when you bridge these two things, all right, you bridge the gap between this and that. Well, then you have to bridge the gap between your elbow and the rest of your body, and then you're going to bridge the gap between all of this. This is so important, and this is the invisible Wing Chun that you cannot be taught. You have to explore this on your own, and it's going to take time and training. So again, keep in mind, you're here to perfect your weapons right now. Triangles are everywhere, and again, this is the time you take where I don't care if you do this 100 times. You should be really doing this 1,000 times. Just a small, what does this mean to you now? Versus what will this mean for you in years from now? It's the same motion, which will speak to you over time. So take your time with it. Discover it slow. All right, so that's where we're at right now. Remember, this is just real. You got to get the basics down, the foundation. So over the next week, until we get to the next technique section, do this every day. 100, 200, 300 times. Do that punch, do that Taan sao over and over and over and over again. And even if you're brand new, do it, or excuse me, you're 20 years into it, come back to it, explore it again. Remember, Thursdays, 2 p.m. Central, is the live Q&A time. So that's tomorrow will be our first live Q&A. If you have any questions, make sure you like, comment, subscribe to the videos, obviously. But if you have any questions and you're able to make the live feed, come on, let's talk about it. And then we'll start exploring from there some more concept-based. But I'm glad to be doing this with you guys. Thanks for sharing this with me, and I'll see you on the next video.